Okay, and we're live. All right, welcome back to Archer's World of Literature, everyone. Whoever's watching, I'm super excited today to be joined by the lovely Joanna. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Joanna, and thank you, Archer, so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to get the opportunity to chat with you, and I've been really enjoying your channel so far. But yeah, I'm here on BookTube. I mostly read, well, fantasy is my favorite genre, but as I learned last year, even with my top 10 video last year, I do read other genres and enjoy other genres as well, but
Yeah,
mostly fantasy. Mhm.
yeah, okay, yeah. I feel like it's really good to break it up, especially with fantasy when it becomes like really dense sometimes. And like I found myself like even though I'm reading like Hobbit at the moment, and I had like one book break between her and George Martin. But I'm sort of
Mm.
like wow, it is a lot, especially when you go from like a book that's this big, then this small, and then this big. But
Yeah.
hello, Matt is here.
Oh, Matt's here. Hey, Matt.
Matt's been really supportive for me as well because he grew up in Australia and stuff, so he's sort of a fellow Aussie for me. So
Oh,
good to see
and
him.
that's exciting. By the way, I'm going to Australia for the first time this summer.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
god! Oh my god! Where are you going?
I don't know everywhere we're going, but I know my husband and I are going to be in Melbourne for a
Oh my
short
god!
while. I think that's where you are, right? Like
Yeah, that's
near
where I
there?
am. Yeah,
Yeah.
Melbourne. That's awesome. So you're
Yeah.
going in the summer in the States summer.
In the States, so I'm afraid it's going to be winter there. That's the only thing. It's
Yeah.
going to be in August or early
Okay,
August.
August. I'm trying to think. I think August is pretty cold.
Oh
August is
no.
very cold. If you're in the city, yeah, if you're in the city, it's probably going to be like you're going to be okay. Just rug up. If you're venturing outside into like country or like where there's heaps of trees and stuff, it could get really windy. So just look out for yourself on the road and stuff like that. It can
Oh
get kind of
goodness.
scary. I don't want to scare you away, but
And it's
Alan,
Alan. Hey, Alan.
how's it going? Good to see you.
Good.
We're just talking about the dangers of Australia. I'm trying to
Yeah,
do my best not to scare Joanna from coming to
I know
Australia.
because I'm not very good with cold weather.
Yeah,
But
that's all
yeah,
right.
we're going to Singapore first.
Oh, lovely.
So we're
Singapore's
taking a
lovely.
trip to Singapore, and then we're gonna go to, Melbourne, and I think we're gonna go up north a little bit because it's closer to the equator, right? So it's a little bit warmer.
Yeah, also you're probably gonna go to like Queensland or Northern
Think so.
Territory.
I really don't know. I should probably
Yeah,
ask.
yeah,
My
yeah.
husband is the one
Queens,
planning all the details with that.
yeah. Queensland is like on the coast, on the east coast above Melbourne, so it's like beach and stuff.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if that would be all that good in the winter, but it'll still be all right. Rug up does mean put on warm clothes. Yes. If I have any slang, please call me out, Alan.
Alan is scaring me.
That's
Oh, man. I'm
what
already
I feel like.
arachnophobic.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the conception. Like everyone gets so scared by like because I mean for us it's sort of like we grow up with stuff like that and we kind of like make it not as big of a deal as a lot of other people would think. Obviously we don't have human headed spiders. But we grow up with snakes and spiders and stuff, and then I think the perception is like that's so crazy, but for us it's normal. We where I used to live, we've had bats come in the house, and we had like huntsman spiders, like really like spiders about this big. They would just be on the roof, and it would be terrifying. I'd wake
Whoa.
up and there'd be one on the roof.
Wow.
I grew up in like the hills, so the hills is kind of like I guess like country, but like forest, so it's a little bit more normal. But first time with Alan popping up in the stream, and I'm just like trying to figure out how to like gauge his humor, and I know Alan can be a little bit like he's trying to like stir the pot. So
I'm gonna torture Alan a little bit, and I'm gonna say, "Hey, Alan, Sarah told me about her experience reading Guards by Terry Pratchett."
Yeah.
Have you read any Terry Pratchett, by the way,
No,
Archer?
I've got them all sitting like behind my couch here. I do have them all. I opened up a Patreon the other day, and one of the tiers was like vote my TBR, and the first one of the voting thing was Color of Light. I am aware that even Pratchett himself has said that not the best book, Color of Light, but I wanted to start with, as Scott would say, publication order. But have you read? What have you read by him?
I've only read 2. I've only read Guards, and the second one, Men at Arms. And yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
Alan. She didn't tell me. I just wanted to torture you. But anyway, yeah, but yeah, I started reading a little bit of it because of Alan, and Alan is a really good go-to. He has a great guide on Terry Pratchett and where to start with his books if
Okay,
you're ever
cool.
interested. But yeah, I'm curious about your journey though, because I know that you read some fantasy and you read literary fiction. You
Yeah.
mix up your genres.
Yeah,
You read
bounce
some
around.
Murakami.
Yeah, no, so I mainly, I mean, you see behind me, I got like a bunch of all these fantasy series. I got Sanderson and Robin Hobb and all that. And I think, I don't know about you, but I've got that huge problem where I buy a lot of books that I haven't read. I do. I've got a book buying problem, and I will just, because I'll watch videos, like I'll watch your videos, Mike, Alan, anyone, Matt, whoever, and I'll gauge like from a couple of their videos who's saying what and what will align with my taste, and I'll trust these people enough. That's the thing, because everyone here is like quite trustworthy, I'd say. Um, I'll gauge, what people are saying, and if it aligns with my interest, and I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna like this. I will like this, and I'll
Oh,
buy.
that's good.
I'll buy all
Yeah.
of it. I'll
Yeah,
buy
well,
all
I
of it.
like what you said about how you really make sure to tell. It's kind of true, by the way, what Alan is saying. I do. Well, see, when I started getting back into reading for fun, because I
Yeah,
took forever off of reading for fun, reading fiction, I started getting back into it, and I don't know, I felt very discouraged going to the bookstore and seeing
yeah,
how expensive books were,
yeah,
especially considering how less expensive they were when I was younger. So I think
yeah.
I'm old enough to have seen a huge difference in that. And so when I started getting back into reading again, rather than buy books, I did buy a few mass
Yeah,
market paperback books. But what I did was I just started using my library because I
yeah,
realized that any book, I can get pretty much any book through the library and really nice edition and everything.
hmm
So I ended up doing that for years, just using the library over and over again. And I still use the library quite often, but
yeah.
I have
Okay.
slowly started to build up a collection
Yeah.
just very purposefully. But Alan, I'm not as much of a minimalist because I did add a whole new bookshelf here, which I'm
I
going to
saw
be
that. I saw
starting
that. It looks
to, yeah,
starting.
which
Yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
to be
Well, I
starting to
guess
fill.
the good thing is, I mean, if you go to like, trying to, you're gonna have to call me out on slang. We've got op shop. Do you know what an
Up,
op shop is?
up shop? No, I don't.
Op shop. So OP and then hyphen shop. So that is, I think you guys call it thrift store. Thrift
Oh,
store.
okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. So we call it op shop, which is short for opportunity shop. It's like
Oh,
a
neat. Okay.
yes, op shop. So you can find like thrift. I'll say thrift store. You can find some pretty good editions and stuff at like thrift stores and all that, and like pretty decent quality as well. Like a lot of the time, you can find borderline brand new books there, and they usually go to a good cause as well. So I mean, if you read something like from a library, and then if you really like it, and then you stumble across like a beautiful edition for like $2, that's always a good thing as well. It's funny that you say that you get a lot of your books from a library because I work at a library
Oh,
and
that's great.
so I work at a library. It's approaching 2 years and it's great. But there's 50% of us, like the staff, will be like, oh yeah, I buy books too. It's a collection. I understand. And then the other 50%, whenever I come back to work with like a bookshop bag or whatever, they're like, why have you bought a book? Like you work at a library. What are you doing? And I'm like, it's my collection. Like please, please chill. I know they like berate me, but for me, it's kind of like Zen, right? Like when I wake up in the morning, like that's the first thing I go on. Like I have my coffee and I just like look at it, and it just makes me happy.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And I mean, I do think minimalism is cool, but I think that what I like about the definition of minimalism, the definition I abide by anyway, is a is not anti-collecting, just
Yeah,
collecting things that you appreciate that are meaningful to you.
of
And for
course.
some people, that's books, and maybe
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
many books. So I think you
yeah.
could still be a minimalist and a book hoarder,
For
so to
sure,
speak.
yeah. I mean, I'm,
Yeah.
I'm I'm at the point where I've got like books like actually stacking up on the floor, and I haven't bought a
Oh,
shelf for it, but it's bad. It's bad. Hello,
wow.
Anita. How are you? Good to see you. Hello.
I do not live
Joanne.
in a tiny house. Well, I guess maybe, I don't know. Depends on your definition. Hi, Anita. Yay,
Hello.
it's nice to see you. Some people
Okay,
here. Yeah.
I did want to start. We've already like had some really great conversation and stuff. So This was actually the first thing I was going to ask you. Was the obvious? What are you currently reading?
What am I currently reading? I am currently reading A Game of Thrones. It's my reread of A Game of Thrones,
Yep.
and I'm hosting a read along,
Mhm.
reread along,
Yes.
because my other lovely co-hosts for this read along are all rereading the series. But we
Yep.
have a bunch of people who are joining us who are reading the series for the first time, and it is one of my favorite series of all time. And the reread experience, I know you were recently talking about a Game of Thrones, or not a Game of Thrones, but
I'm on my first
Game of
read.
Thrones.
I'm on my
Oh,
first read. Yeah.
wow. Tell me
So
your experience.
okay, so I watched. I found out about the show when I was about 13 or whatever, and I watched like the first couple seasons, and then I was like hiding it from my mom and stuff because it was like I'm gonna get caught watching it. And then I just got bored because I was like 13. I couldn't understand the politics and all this stuff, so I stopped watching it. And then intermittently between like year 7, 8, and 9, I kept starting and stopping. And then in about year 9, which was sort of like 15, 16, I finished it. And then I was watching the show up to date, like 6, 7, series 6, 7, and 8. With the books, I had obviously sort of discovered the show first. But when I was a kid, I was at the bookstore, and my dad doesn't read, and my mum reads a lot. And my dad said, "I'll buy you a book if you'd like." And I was like, "Oh, how about this one?" And I was probably about, yeah, like I said, like 12, 13, and it was A Game of Thrones. And I take it home and I start reading, and I was like, "Oh, thanks, Dad. Like, you're the best." I get home, my mum's still out at work or she's doing something, and so I'm reading like the first chapter, that prologue. And she gets home, and because she's a really big reader, I'm like, "Mom, look, Dad bought me a book. Dad bought me a book."
Oh
And
no.
she's like, uh, Stuart, what do you know what this book's about? And he's like, "No, I don't read." And then I was like, "No, Mom, it's fine, it's fine." And she confiscated it because, and I was super mad as like a kid because I was like, "You took my book away, whatever." And now as I'm older, I'm like, "Okay, thank you for taking the book away from me because that would have scarred me, right?" But then yeah, only sort of just recently, I bought like these really nice editions of it's got like these landscapes on the front, and I just loved it. And I just decided to pick it up, and because like I said, most people know from my channel, I only got back into reading for fun, like just over a year ago as well. So I've probably had a similar experience to you. Um, and so I just decided to start reading it. So I read A Game of Thrones, and then about a month later, Clash of Kings, and I've just recently finished Song of Swords. And
Wow.
it's
Storm of
so much better than
Swords.
the book. The show. It's so much better than the show.
Oh, so much better. The thing is
Your
with
mum is the Yeah, she was. She was. Yeah. So, what's your experience with it? Like, when did you read it, or like how many times? Or
Yeah, so I read it for the first time right before the show came out. I had some friends at the time who were big time fans, including my then boyfriend was a huge, long time fan.
yeah,
And I was very intimidated by it because I wasn't used to reading a lot of complex fantasy at the time. It's still fairly new to the genre in a way.
yeah,
And I had also, even then, had taken a long break from reading.
yep,
But I picked up A Game of Thrones and I thought, I'm going to read this very, very slowly. I'm going to
yep.
take my time. I'm not going to expect myself to rush through it. Hello. And then the next thing I knew, I think it took up until the chapter. This isn't no spoiler here, but the chapter with Bran when he's climbing around Winterfell and seeing Winterfell from different perspectives. I'll just say that much. I won't say
Different
anymore.
perspectives. Yep, yep.
But that particular chapter was the hook for me.
Hmm.
As even just that imagery of him being a child exploring the castle and seeing all these different perspectives of the people, I felt like I could relate to that. I could remember what it was like as a child and feeling that way, climbing
Yep,
up on the top of my house or whatever, and I was hooked. And then, as you know, it just gets more and more wild from there.
yeah. Cool.
But I was so surprised because I just went one book right into the next. And so I basically binged all 5 books before I
Wow,
knew it at the time. And
wow.
then I ended up, my dad is also an avid reader, but he only reads like thrillers and suspense novels and Clive Barker and
Yeah,
books
yeah.
like that. I'm trying to think of some other authors. Clive Cussler,
Michael
probably. I don't
Connolly and
know.
Michael Michael Connolly, James Patterson.
There you go. Yes, those
Yeah.
authors.
I
So
guess
he
that's like half of our patronage. So
okay, yeah, that was my dad. That was his reading preference, but he had
yeah,
never read a fantasy book in his life, and I took a chance with him. I think it was like his birthday at the time or Father's Day, one or the other, and I gifted him the ebook to A Game of Thrones, and I said, "Look, Dad, I know you don't read fantasy, but there is a bit of a murder mystery in this story. I just think maybe give it a chance." And he
yeah,
did. And the next thing I knew, he binged all 5 books. And he
yay!
loved it. And he
That's
hasn't since picked up another fantasy, but he was even after the 5th book, even though I told him over and over again, he has a thick Mexican accent. He said,
yeah.
Joanna, when is Martin coming out with next book? You know? No,
And you're like, keep waiting. Maybe tomorrow.
I
Maybe
know.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was
of
hooked
course.
too. He was
That's
completely
so cool.
hooked.
Yeah,
And I have to say that all these years later, rereading that series, like rereading book 1,
hmm
the first time I read the series, I could see why people have reread that series so many times now because all these years later, the first time I read the book, like a Game of Thrones, even any of the books, I remember just feeling on the edge of my seat because I
yeah,
watched them before the show, watching the show, and I was just freaking out. Like, what
yeah,
the heck is going to happen? What the
yeah,
heck is going to happen?
yeah,
Getting hooked into every single character storyline. And then now, all these years later, rereading the book, it's a different experience because rather than feeling the anticipation and the fear and dread of what's going to happen next,
yeah,
as far as not knowing,
yeah,
now it's like I do know what's going to happen,
yeah.
and I'm getting so emotional.
I
I'm like
know.
tearing up at times
Yeah, because you
because I
know what's gonna
know,
happen to
yes,
certain
and
characters.
you see the foreshadowing everywhere,
hmm
everywhere. It's all over the place. So
Yeah,
it's been like surprisingly, I didn't expect it to be such an emotional experience, but it's been an emotional experience.
yeah. Okay. Wow. How
Yeah.
far into Game of Thrones are you at the moment?
Oh, I probably will finish it tomorrow, I think.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I'm hoping. I still have a good 100 pages. I've been reading very slowly this month.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really should be finished by now. Everybody I've started to read along with, they finished like within 2 days, and I've been like taking forever, but yeah, I've been really enjoying it and just
Yeah.
savoring the experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I really wanted to join along with it because I saw all the dates and who was doing the certain videos and stuff, and I was like, this is happening just a month too like late for like a month too late for me because I was reading just finished Storm of Swords and I know that's happening in March.
I think so, yeah.
I was
Um,
thinking, oh, I'm just a couple of months behind because I'm probably going to read. Actually, I might be able to join. I might be able to join in at Feast for Crows. Maybe.
I mean, you should just at least watch the live shows, you
Of
know?
course, yeah, of course I will. Now
Because
I know.
you've already read the books. You could still participate in watching the live shows and contributing in the chat,
Of course.
giving your takes, because I'm sure there are gonna be a lot of varying opinions about things, but
Oh yeah, for
it's been a
sure.
blast. I mean, I think everyone I know it's happening largely over on the Grimoire Discord,
Yeah,
which is Alex from Tall Guy Reads, his channel, along with
yeah,
Theo Rekindled Reader. That and it's just wild there. Everybody is so excited, having the best time.
yeah.
It's been amazing. It's been one of the best rereading A Song of Ice and Fire has been one of the best decisions I've ever made in
That's
my
awesome.
reading life.
That's so good. I will admit it's probably one of the only series aside from like Harry Potter, because that's my like comfort read, that I can see like rereadability in it for me. Because it's sort of like I've got so many series and books that I want to read. I don't really like. I know Matt, you're probably gonna kill me for saying this, but I don't really have time to like reread stuff because I'm like, there's other things I haven't read. But Harry Potter and A Song of Ice and Fire, I'm like, I can reread this for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Harry Potter too. I thought that was one of your favorite series,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. I'm rereading it at the moment in like these illustrated editions, and oh my god, it's so beautiful.
yeah. So
Hello, Jaden.
what are you
Hello.
currently reading right now, by the way?
Okay, I am currently reading. You make me want to reread A Song of Ice and Fire, and so
Yay!
yay! I'm also due to reread Lord of the Rings. Yep, of course. Yep. Jaden's one of my best friends. He's a street poet in Melbourne. So when you're walking around Melbourne, he does. If you're walking around alleyways and stuff, like street art is a really big thing in the city of Melbourne. There'll be like stickers, like graffiti art and stuff is big, but you'll also find like homemade like stickers and printouts, like blue tacks to walls and stuff. And he writes poems and he like sticks them up in alleyways and on walls, like just secretly everywhere. And if you find one, it's got like his Instagram and stuff on it. So if you find one and it says Jaden on it, that's Jaden. Yeah, he's awesome.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so that's a really big scene in Melbourne, the artwork and stuff. So when you're here, browse the alleyways and stuff. They're full of like really cool coffee shops and restaurants and secret little shops and stuff. It's very fun.
Oh, I love that kind of stuff. I will do that.
So I'm reading on my Goodreads. I think officially I have like 10 books like on my Reddit at the moment, but some of them are on like hiatus. I've sort of just, because one of them is like a poetry book and then the other one is like a history book, and I was just getting too wrapped up in Robin Hobb to pick those back up. But yeah, so Royal Assassin. This book is amazing. It's so good. It's so good. I thought when I finished Assassin's Apprentice, I thought it was like I thought it was a really good book, right? I thought it was like a fine, like really good book for the size of it. It's got a lot in it. It's introduced a lot and it's set up a good world. I didn't think it was like Game of Thrones level, like huge, this is the best thing ever. Royal Assassin is so far a 5 out of 5. It is so good. I'm just like understanding his character so much more, and I don't know, seeing him like grow up and like dealing with like Molly and like his having like kind of an uncle sort of, you know, the father figure with, you know, Verity and stuff it's so good. So I'm reading that and I'm loving it. And then I'm also reading Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
I read that when I was young.
Yeah, oh my God, that's so cool. So my apartment has like a little free library thing downstairs where you can take a book and then like put something back. And I found these like old school, it's even got like the reading level on the back of these old school scholastic editions, and it's just been so cool. And because I watched Mike's review of it, like the deluxe edition, and he was saying that parents were trying to get it out of like book fairs and stuff because of how scary it was. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, it's terrifying.
Is that the one where the spider splits open the girl's face? Because that's the one. Okay, because there's a story like that in there, and it freaked me out as a kid.
Yeah, because
I had that edition. I had that same edition too.
Really? That's so cool. Wow. Have you seen the film?
I haven't, but my husband saw it and he really liked it, I think. So
it's all right. I mean, it's just kind of like fun, kind of like jump scare horror sort of thing. It's nothing like super creative. I think that I saw the spider scene in that. They did that chapter, and it was just the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
So disgusting.
That probably started your arachnophobia, right?
I know, probably, yeah.
And then I'm reading the book about everything. So this is like 18 artists, writers, and thinkers on Ulysses by James Joyce. So it's just essays on each chapter. And then this is, I started this as my 12 Friends, 12 Books like video for this year.
Yeah.
Ocean Vuong, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. So this is like, it's about like a Vietnamese boy, and they migrate like after the war and stuff to America. And he's writing letters about him and his mum's life to his mum who can't read English. Well, I can't read, and it's just beautiful. It's really sitting with me. But this one's a library copy, so I've learned. I'm slowly learning.
Cool.
So yeah, that's what I'm reading. I've sort of like, after watching Mike for a bit, and since starting my channel, I never planned my TBRs month by month, and now it's kind of happening. I've got like the next 3 months planned.
BookTube will do that to you. BookTube will do that to you.
Because it's sort of like, oh, you know, I could just wing it, but then it's like, oh, if I do a list, then I can do like a TBR announcement, and I can do this video and stuff, and I can follow it. But then that puts a little bit of pressure on me though, because I'm not very good at sticking to those lists. Like if 1 or 2 parties happen in a month, or 1 or 2 events or dinners happen, whatever, it's like, and it stunts the whole thing, then I have to come back to my channel next month and be like, so something happened. But yeah, so that's what I'm reading. So I mean, I am like willing to change it though, because so far Royal Assassin is so good. I'm kind of like, I could jump into Assassin's Quest. I could just jump straight into it.
Oh yeah, I cannot wait to hear your thoughts when you finish the trilogy.
Hello, Drew.
Hello, Drew.
It's so strange seeing people like say Happy Saturday. I'm like freaking out. Like, I'm working Saturday. Like, what do you mean?
In case anybody doesn't know, it's actually Sunday right now in Australia, where Archer is. And I just noticed you wrote Fitz Archer.
I did, yes. Fitz Archer Farsi.
Fitz Archer Farsi. That's perfect.
growing boy amongst the castle. Okay, so the next thing that I sort of wanted to ask was, I know you've probably been asked this a lot, and you're probably sick of saying it. When and what sort of made you start your channel?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Uh, yeah, it is kind of a funny story. So Alan in the chat,
Mhm.
I always credit Alan as the reason I started my channel because I found out about BookTube back in, I would say 2017, around then, maybe a
Yep,
little earlier. And that was when I started getting back into reading more consistently fiction again.
yep,
And around that time, I think I found actually the reason I found BookTube was because I was watching the Game of Thrones series and I
yep,
had just finished the last season. And I wasn't crazy about the last season, as I know a lot of people weren't. But at the time, I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. And I looked on YouTube out of curiosity and I found Daniel Green's video analysis of that last season.
yep,
And I really liked it. I liked what he had to say. And then that's how I little by little figured out there was this whole section of YouTube that was dedicated to books.
yep,
But through Daniel Green's channel, I watched some of his videos, but I mostly just tried to find other channels and I found most of the channels I found at the time were mostly focused on either Sanderson or YA fantasy.
yeah, yeah,
So, which was fine because honestly, I was just so new to fantasy at the time. So I
yeah,
got a lot of recommendations from those channels, just watching those channels to read a lot of YA fantasy.
yeah,
Um, but I did I finally started getting interested in more adult content. Long story short, I thought BookTube was mostly just um, a YA fantasy type of
yeah, yeah,
a section of the internet
yeah. Mhm.
until I think one of the people I was following at the time who had a great channel, she shouted out Alan's channel.
Mhm.
And I went over to Alan's channel and I was like, who is this guy? Because he was just so charismatic and funny
Yeah,
and entertaining. And the next thing I knew, I just binge watched all his videos. But at that time, I never commented on videos. I only just was a lurker. So I'd
yeah,
watch videos and I'd get recommendations and I go to the library or whatever. But I never thought I would be a booktuber because I always thought it'd be kind of cool because I love talking about books and I love reading. But at the same time, I'm like, one, I'm not a big book collector. I don't do a bunch of book hauls or, that kind
yeah,
of thing. There were just a million reasons I didn't think I would ever start a channel. But what
yeah,
happened was I don't know. I think I started commenting on Alan's videos is what happened and following him on Instagram. And he commented back and started engaging with me. He made me feel so welcome. He was just so kind and friendly and open that it made me encouraged to start commenting more on his videos and on other people's channels.
yeah,
And the next thing I knew, Alan was preaching, join the Shelf Space Discord. It was a Discord at the time that he was a part of. And so I joined the Discord and then I made a lot of other friends through the Discord communities. I don't know if you know, are you in Discord at all?
yeah. I'm in a few. I'm in a few. I'm not in all of them, but I am in some of them.
Yeah. So I started getting really involved in some of those and
Yeah,
started chatting with people and then getting to talk to other booktubers through Discord. And then one day I was on my channel, like, because you have to have a channel to comment or interact on YouTube.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
noticed I had a few
Oh,
subscribers,
yeah,
like 3 subscribers maybe. And I had no content, but I thought it
yeah,
was so funny that anybody would subscribe to me, a channel that doesn't have any videos.
yeah,
I just got
yeah,
a kick out of it. I thought it was hilarious. So
yeah.
I threw a joke out there on a Discord and I said, if I make it to 5 subscribers, I'll do a Q&A video.
Oh my
Because, most people, they're like, if I make it to 50 or if I make it to 100 subscribers or,
yeah,
500 subscribers. So it was kind of a big joke of like 5 subscribers and I'll do a Q&A video.
yeah, yeah,
And sure enough, some friends on Discord subscribed. And
yeah.
I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to do it. So I'll take
Yeah,
your
you guys are
questions.
over there, yeah.
So some friends on Discord sent me their questions, even a couple of people who had channels. And so I put together my first ever video. It's really bad, but I think you have to have a bad first video.
Yeah, of
That's like
course.
the
Of course.
rule. And so I put out a very bad first video and I didn't know if I would continue, but I was just surprised by the level of kindness
I know.
people, I don't know, people are just so kind in this section of the internet.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the case in all of YouTube.
Mhm.
So that made me feel very encouraged. And as a result, I ended up committing to having a channel. But yeah, I
Yeah.
really do credit Alan as the one who got me, uh, who made me feel encouraged or welcomed in the community in the first place.
Hey, there we go. Father Ellen. That's
Yay.
amazing. That's such a
And
sweet
I know,
story.
and
That's
Anita, it sounds like she has a very similar story because she said that Alan is the reason that she joined as well.
oh, there we go. Yeah, we'll just catch up on the chat.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
join
he's
Discord.
he's awesome.
Yeah.
It's that yeah, that's one been. I'm just gonna catch up on the chat and then we'll.
Sure.
Archer, I like your name on the stream. I was able to convince my girlfriend to name one of our cats Fitz Chivalry Fast. His brother's name.
That's funny.
You imagine calling like, come on, Harry Dresden, come on, dinner time. It's so funny. Yeah, how do you do that? Yeah, Fitz Chivalry, come on. Dinner Fitz Chivalry. That's so cute. Yeah, no, one thing that I've like found like you said, it's sort of like you've got 5 subs or whatever, and it's like, you know, I had 5, 10 subs or whatever, and I found like instantly everyone is so like kind. Even when you've got like one person commenting or whatever, it's like, wow, these people are like dedicated to you as if like you were like some big hoo-ha, and it's like I'm just like this normal person with like 10 subs or whatever, and this person actively watching my videos and being so kind. And then that sort of happened, and I sort of built like a few like loyal followers, and then I started realizing like how willing to interact and like communicate like the actual creators were, because I think there's kind of like this, oh, you know, I've grown like this community and people who watch me, and you know that's fine. But then there's sort of this thing where it's like, oh, you know, other people have got their own channels. They're not gonna, they're busy with that stuff. Like, I mean, if you look at like music and stuff, if you text a musician or whatever, it's like that you like, they're not going to respond to you, right? Or you text, you know, an actor or whatever, they're not going to respond to you. They're too big. But you kind of still have that same sort of thing, even if someone's only got 20,000 subs, or whatever. You're still like, they're not going to respond to me. That's no way. And then you look, and it's like they are responding to people, and it's amazing. That's why I'm like so grateful to have you on and stuff, because like your channel is really successful and amazing, and everyone else that I've reached out to has just been like yeah, I'll come on, and like yeah, let's do this. And I messaged this is a live stream and live replay exclusive that only you guys will find out who's next. So I've got, everyone knows I've got Scott coming on next Sunday, so Saturday for America. Can't wait for that. But then this is the exclusive here. I've got Alex from Tall Guy Reads coming on at some point after that. So he's gonna be my first one for February, and it's like, again, it's like another person with like, you know, a few thousand followers, and is just instantly responding. And I was like, this is amazing. You guys are so cool.
Those guys are so nice. They're also my hosts in the A Song of Ice and Fire. Read along.
Hello. Yeah. This is Britton is here. I joined Britton for one of his podcasts. He's a member of my Discord and follow me.
Oh, that's cool. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying, because if you look at other sections of YouTube, I don't know that it's always the case where fellow people in that section of YouTube are going to be commenting on each other's channels.
Yeah, they don't collaborate.
Yeah. I don't think it happens as much as it does here in BookTube.
No. And that's why it's like you see all these different people, and it's like I started watching, you know, I think I first started, I watched Mike, and then I saw Daniel Green and, you know, those guys. And then it wasn't until then I was like, wow, like, I mean, you know, aside from maybe like Daniel or whatever, but I was like, a lot of these guys are doing streams together, and they're the read-alongs and all this stuff. And I think as a result, with us doing what we're doing right now, and, you know, everyone, the Game of Thrones read-along, all that stuff, it really inspires people to like read more and stuff, and interact and comment and like be active followers. And I think that's like a really healthy relationship with the internet, because like I said, like you said before, sorry, there's not really many other corners of the internet where it's this positive.
Yeah.
Even if your followers in another sort of community like what you like, whatever, like you're talking about music or whatever, it's like it's so quick to become negative or whatever. But it's like I've got no problem. Like I've been watching, you know, before I started my channel, I've realized these guys are really cool, but they're also honest. They're not afraid to like say what they actually think, and there's no negative reception. So as a result, I'm not afraid to say, oh, you know, I didn't really like this part in the book and stuff. And I'll get some joking comments or whatever. Jaden, you're going to kill me. I said recently in my Storm of Swords review that I kind of low-key, high-key despised the Davos chapters. I just don't really like him as a character, at least in Storm of Swords. I'm just like, I don't really care. And he was mad, but like jokingly, he was like, oh, I love Davos. Like we don't stand Davos hate and stuff like that. But it's all like a joke, and it's sort of at the end of the day, it is respecting like other people's opinions.
Yeah, yeah, that kind of happened last night. I was over on there was like a live stream for Farseer, and I had to drop in. I ended up dropping in my pretty hot takes.
Yeah, okay,
and it was kind of funny, and it was just fun to joke about it. And I knew like there was some disagreement, and that it was just all in good fun. And I think that's fine. I think that's kind of cool to me that we can just disagree about things, and at the end of the day, it's just a book, and we could still be friends, and it's not a
at the end of the world. Like it's not like we can't be friends anymore. It's sort of like
it doesn't have to become so heated or so it doesn't have to be.
I mean, you can turn around and be like, I can't believe Joanna didn't like how did Joanna not like that or whatever? But then it's like the next day it's like, oh, she didn't like it, whatever. She'll like the next one I recommend or something.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and then people can give you different perspectives on things you don't like or things you do like. And I think it's always just neat because I think it's a process to read a book, to experience a book, to get information out of a book on your own. But then there's a whole other journey that happens once you finish a book and you're processing that information. And then the community becomes part of that process as well, sharing their ideas, their feedback. And that's why I love watching reviews. I love to hear different perspectives on the same books that I've read.
Yeah, because then, like, I mean, a lot of the time, like, you'll read something that someone else has thought, and you may have, like, been, oh, I did pick that up. But then a lot of the times you'll be like, whoa, didn't pick that up. That's all, like, thank you, right?
Yeah.
So I've just got to...
I'm trying to remember. I think I was not as crazy about that perspective either on my first read. Yeah. So I'm curious how I'm going to feel on my reread.
Yeah.
I think it did get better for me, though, as I read on in the 5 books, though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in Feast for Crows and stuff, and I think he's probably got a bigger role. But
I think so. It's hard to remember.
Yeah. So,
what was your other question? Were you going to ask something else? Okay.
I got it here. The one question I have written down is, okay, full stop. Malazan, full stop. Sell me.
All right. This is a hard sell, to be honest with you, because it is a huge I mean, to read Malazan Book of the Fallen, the books get more and more, they get lengthier, they get more dense. In A Song of Ice and Fire, we have a ton of characters, but they're constantly recurring, and we're very close to them. In Malazan, you have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of characters. You have even more. Yeah.
Okay.
The thing, though, with Malazan, though, is that I think there's a good chance you would enjoy Malazan because you read so much literary fiction.
Yeah.
You read a lot of Murakami. I know you've mentioned that author, as well as other types of fiction and classical fiction. And I think if, a lot of people, when they read Malazan, they think I need to have a lot of fantasy under my belt before I could read something like Malazan. Yeah. I think kind of the opposite. I think in some ways you might be better served not having a lot of fantasy under your belt when you read Malazan and actually reading a lot of literary fiction, and especially like Murakami or magical realism or different kinds of genres, where you could be open to different types of narrative structures or different types of focus in literature, where it's not always about the plot beats, for example. Then you could appreciate what Erikson is doing, because a lot of the way that Malazan is structured, I think a good way that I've heard it framed, and I think that this would be accurate based on my own experience. It's not this isn't my original thought, but the idea that he writes in kind of a vignette style. So it feels almost like short stories weaved together.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. So I think you might have a chance of liking it.
Okay.
Yeah, it is complex. It is very complex. And I know people will fight about this too. You will hear people fight about this, because you'll hear one side of the internet or the readership say, Malazan is complex, it's confusing. You'll hear another side of the argument say, it's not that complex. It's not that hard. People are overdoing it when they say it's hard, when they say it's complex. It's not that bad.
Okay. That's your opinion?
Depends on your perspective, depends on how you approach the literature.
Yes.
So for me, like if you're somebody who's a very plot-driven reader and you need to know exactly what's happening in the plot at all times and what the bigger picture is at all times and where we're going, if you need to have that known feeling all the time, then it's going to be a mess. It's going to be difficult for you. But if
Yeah.
you're somebody who can just, okay, this is confusing, but I can kind of roll with this,
Yeah.
I think you have a better chance of being able to appreciate what's there. Now, the way that I approached Malazan, or what helped me, because I loved Gardens of the Moon, I thought it was really weird. That's an unpopular opinion, by the way, book one.
Yeah.
Most
I've heard
people
it's
consider
very
that
hard.
their least favorite. I
Yeah.
loved it. I just thought it was so different. And I thought Erickson had just such a different, fresh take on atmosphere and tone and magic compared to anything I had read in fantasy before. So
Okay.
for me, it was like a breath of fresh air. I got to book 2 and I really struggled getting into it. And that's totally an unpopular opinion. Ask Matt on books. He
Okay.
feels the opposite. He was less crazy about Gardens of the Moon, DNF'd it several times, and then loved the second book. He
Yeah, I heard he
loved
said
the
that.
House Gates.
Yeah. That sparked his like that multiple times rereading it sparked him like finally like doing it all.
Yeah. And I honestly, Dead House Gates, that second book, is one where I struggled getting into it initially, loved the end, and then months later, I took a long break after that. Months later, I looked back and I couldn't stop thinking about the book. Like I
Okay.
couldn't stop
That's when
thinking
you know.
about, yeah, he does some really powerful things. And then I wasn't sure if I was going to continue after the second book, but then I watched a great video by my friend Andy Smith. I could send it to you sometime, just remind me. And he talks about how Malazan is kind of like a post-structural, postmodern approach to the fantasy genre. So he's deconstructing familiar tropes and familiar narrative structures that you see in fantasy and recontextualizing them with a different type of approach. So whereas a lot of fantasy is very character driven, where you're following your one main group of characters or your one chosen one character, Malazan doesn't do that. You don't stay in one perspective very long. The characters are really well written. They're, in my opinion, I think his characterization is phenomenal, but you don't follow that tight knit group. So a lot of people, they want to orient in fantasy by following the tight knit group of characters. And the other thing, yeah, culture. Oh, that's a good way to put it. Yes, because Stephen Erickson and Ian Esselmont are both archaeologists as well. So they bring
Wow.
a lot of that
Okay.
expertise into their writing and their world building. But and then another thing that we'd look for in fantasy is a specific plot or a specific type of narrative arc, a certain way that plot beats come out, and they also subvert that expectation as well. But what really helped me, what Andy said, one thing that really helped me from what he said, is that rather than thinking of Malazan as a character-driven series or a plot-driven series, if you think about it more as a theme-driven series, that is when it comes together more. And for me, that clicked. Once he said that, after that, I had a totally different experience with the series because rather than trying to like figure out the plot, which I'm not the most plot-driven reader, I'll be honest. Well, I guess it depends. It depends on the story.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much for me. There is a plot, I would say, but for me, and I love the characters, but for me, when I started to really focus on what are the themes of the story, and the themes of the story can be indicated, one, through the metaphors of the titles themselves of the books. So, for example, like when you find out what House of Chains, the metaphor for that, or Midnight Tribes, Bone Hunters, you start to get some ideas and seeds planted. Another way he does this is through the prologue. In the prologue, he's planting a lot of seeds for the themes of the whole book. And it's always recommended to go back and reread the prologues when you finish the book.
I heard that.
I'm not good about doing that, but it's recommended. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And then the other part about it, though, is to look, and I got this idea from Erickson himself in an interview I watched him in, is to notice what the characters are struggling with. So what chances are when you see what the characters are struggling with, you get some really good clues about what the themes of the story are. So if whether it's colonialism or whether it's betrayal or exploitation or a number of different type of themes. And of course, the other big sell for Malazan that everyone has to talk about is that even it's multi-thematic. Like it's not just about one theme, it's about multiple themes. And he doesn't give you a specific, he doesn't ever tell you as the reader, you never get the sense that he's telling you, this is how you should feel. In
Yeah.
fact, the second you feel like you've landed, this is how I should feel, he'll turn the story around to make you look at a totally different perspective to challenge your belief. So it's
Okay.
very much challenging notions of certainty.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing is compassion and empathy. So those are the big, huge arching themes of the series. But he also doesn't give you a cookie cutter, one fits all sized perspective on compassion and empathy either. He's giving it to you in a sort of prismatic way, showing you the good and the bad of these different traits.
Yeah. Wow, this is why I love your channel. The way you speak about books and like how you like actually like explain them without umming and ahhing, because I and ah all the time, is amazing. I want to pick it up right now. I want to read it right now. That's how good you've sold me. I've got Gardens of the Moon and is it Dead House Gates, right? I've got those two behind me down there, and now I'm like kind of tempted, but then I'm like I'm like 4 books into Wheel of Time, and it's been about a year since I've read that. I need to finish Robin Hobb. I'm still in the way of A Song of Ice and Fire, so there's a part of me where it's kind of like I need to finish a big series before I start it.
Yeah, I would wait. I would not. Take your time, and different people approach it differently. Like some people, they find they need to have breaks between books.
Yeah.
Like Murphy Napier. I know she's reading the series right now. She just finished the 4th book, and she's been taking her time. Like she's not been binging the series at all because they are heavy, and it's not the type of reading. I don't know how to explain it. It's the type of reading where you're going to probably want to sit and reflect on it a little bit. This is why I think actually, I don't highly recommend Mawson to everyone. I'm very careful about who I recommend it to. But I think you would be but I do think there's a chance that you could like it because I know how diversely you read and the fact you're so open to different types of narrative approaches.
Yeah, I think I've had someone else comment that when I think in one of the videos I made where I mentioned this chat and like this upcoming stream, and I was like, oh, we're going to go into Malazan. And I think someone else said like, yeah, you probably like it if you read classics and stuff, because I mean, classics are very theme driven as well. So the second that you said like they're theme driven and you can focus on multiple themes, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm sold. Because I mean, I don't think that I don't know if most classic books probably aren't written with like the intention of having like a theme and being studied in high school, because they were just written as normal books back then, and they became over time, high school teachers would give you a theme or whatever, and that's sort of how it started. So I don't know if do you know if Erikson, when he was writing each book, that he had that in mind, or it just came out at the end?
He did have themes in mind. Yeah, I know. I heard him talk about this over on Philip Chase's channel, and I did talk to him a little bit about this in a live stream I was in with him. He does consider himself a theme-based writer from what I understand, and he does think of theme when he's writing the story. And he thinks of theme, the way he's described it, I forget the metaphor he used for it. What is it called? It's like something that's buried. I can't remember what the term is called. Something that like the themes, think of it this way, like the themes are kind of slightly buried in the story, so they're not overt. They're not sometimes they are a little bit, sometimes they're a little bit on the nose, but not in a way that's ever going to be boring or or generic.
Underlying?
Yeah. I can't remember. Burrow mound? Is that the word I'm thinking? Like a burrow or something.
Yeah, like a rabbit den or something, maybe.
Yeah.
With a rabbit den.
But the themes are always there. And I know that Anthony is talking to you about the great characters. The characters, even though I just said it's not a character-driven reader, it's not a character-driven series. It's not character-driven in the sense that like in Farseer, you're following Fitz's journey. And you do have some main characters around him that are the important characters. And then in Malazan, you have a ton of characters. Like you open up, this is the thing you have to be warned about. Gardens of the Moon, you open up Gardens of the Moon and you see the dramatis personae. I don't know how to pronounce that. Is that how you pronounce it? The cast list.
Oh yeah. Drama Dramalist,
Drama
characterist,
Yeah, I'm not
dramatist.
sure how to pronounce that.
I think you got it. Dramatist, yeah, dramatist. Yeah.
Yeah, so you read the cast list and it's
Wow.
huge, but then you open up Dead House Gates and guess what?
What?
You have a whole new cast list that's equally as big, bringing back only a tiny bit of characters. You
Okay.
open up book 3, you get another huge cast list,
Whoa.
and you return to some of the storylines from book 1, but then you go to book 4 and it's really strange. Book 4 is strange because it opens up and we actually follow one character for the first, like, several, like, chapters, which
Yeah.
usually Malazan doesn't do, but Erikson does break the rules in that book, his own
Okay.
rules. And then in book 5, you go to a new continent and have a whole new cast of characters. So he's constantly so it's not character based in this way that normal fantasy or conventional
Yeah.
fantasy is, where you follow just one main group or one
Yep.
chosen one. But you will become familiar with these characters over time, believe it or not. I know that sounds hard to believe,
Yeah.
and you
Okay.
will grow to love them. In fact, some of my favorite characters don't even show up until book 5, but I still think the characters are really phenomenal even from book 1. There's
Yeah.
great
Well, I mean,
characters.
they're big books, so they're pretty much the equivalent of like a trilogy or something. So you can probably get used to
Yeah, you
following them.
will get it's like like I said, I think just kind of you have to kind of restructure your mind about that, but they are fun. And
Yeah.
also that the other thing that's nice is that the books are heavy. There's a ton of violence. There's pretty much like a rape scene in almost every single book except for maybe one or two.
Yeah.
And so it's heavy with the trigger warnings
Yeah.
big
Okay.
time, but
Yeah.
at the same time he does it in a way that different people disagree, and I think everyone's valid on their viewpoint, whether they don't like it or do
Yeah.
like it. From my perspective, and this is just my own personal take, I do think he does honor the victim's perspective when it
Yeah.
comes to that brutality, and he does it with a purpose.
Yeah.
But there's also added to that, even though there's a lot of dark, heavy content and philosophical content, there's also great humor. So
I've
you will
heard.
be
Yeah.
laughing out loud at several
Yeah.
things happening in the books as well.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard someone bring like a comparison of like Abercrombie's like humor and stuff in there. It's kind of like dark, like kind of like just really stupid like humor, but like kind of dark. Is that kind of what's in there, or?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Uh,
some of the funniest like, one of the funniest characters in the whole entire series for me, there are a couple of funny ones actually even early on, but especially in book 5, yeah, he uses a lot of, I would say even Pratchett-like humor, like very witty humor, banter.
yeah. Okay.
Um, it's
Oh, I'm
it's
so excited. I want to read this
British
now.
kind of British type of humor, if that makes sense, or
Okay.
dry humor. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. That's we take most of our humor here from the
yeah,
Brits, so
yeah.
you probably understand most of it. I'm so excited to read it now. Oh my god, you've sold me. You've
Oh,
sold me.
good.
You've
And let
sold
me
me
know
on
how
the
I
next
can't wait to watch your journey with it because
yeah. It'll be a
It
while. It'll be
it's
a
a journey. It's not yeah, it's interesting because when you read it, there's such a different it's a different perspective when you're reading the series. When reading the series, I remember feeling bogged down here and there, like,
yeah.
"Whoa, this is a lot of stuff happening. I'm not sure I follow this. We're just rolling with it. I don't understand everything." I did take notes, but I wasn't sure about everything. I just grabbed on to what I could understand, and like I said, I usually try to go by theme. Like,
Yeah.
what are the conflicts that people are dealing with in this series? And then try to use that as a clue to what the themes were.
Yeah.
And it's just fun at other points too. Like, there's amazing battle scenes if you like battle scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I love
yeah.
Bernard Cornwell. I read the Warlord trilogy, so
Oh, it's like
love
one of
that.
my favorites. I love
So
that
good.
trilogy.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Would you recommend me like writing or like getting like a theme and stuff like written down on a Word document, and so just like keep an eye on it while I'm reading, like from the
I,
get go?
I mean, it's up to you how you want to approach that. The channels Philip Chase and EP Canavan from A Critical
Yeah.
Dragon, they
I love a bit of action.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're fantastic. Do you watch both of them? They're
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were doing I know they haven't done their Cripple God, the last book yet,
Yeah.
but they pretty much have videos on all 9 books, 9 of the 10 books. And so, hey, Alan, we're talking about
Oh,
Malazan.
Alan is back.
And Alan's
Horizon.
into all of Malazan too, by the
Oh
way.
yeah.
Alan has some great videos.
Yeah.
On Garden, especially on the first 2 books, you got to check out Alan or first 3 books actually. I think Alan has videos on, and he's part of a lot of discussions as well. But I know that AP and Philip, they both do 2 videos per book. So they've done like non-spoiler videos. You're welcome. They've done non-spoiler videos on each of the books on Philip's channel. And on
Yeah.
those videos, you're welcome to watch those before you read the book, and you can
Okay.
find out what the themes are. They
Yeah.
pretty
Wow.
much go through the themes without spoiling the book. And
Okay.
then they do the spoiler talk on AP's channel. So you can
Yeah.
find all those on Philip Chase. But
Yeah.
it's up to you. I mean, I personally think it's kind of fun to see if I can figure out what the themes are for myself. And sometimes, you might find themes that other people don't. So,
Yeah. I'm so excited. You want me to? Are you a TTH apologist? Is that a Malazan reference?
oh, that's yeah, that's Toll the Hounds. So that's book
Oh,
8, and Alan is famous for hating that book, which we
why
had
did
a
I
very
say
fun
I have?
discussion. We did have a very fun like discussion on my channel with Alan for that one. And
Okay.
we're also on Jimmy's channel, Chatting with Nuts, having wonderful discussions with Alan, myself, and Philip.
Yeah.
And Jimmy had some. So there's a lot of great Malazan content, and you could always watch
Yeah.
that stuff afterwards and to process your thoughts, or you could have your own chats. You could invite people on and
Yeah.
have
I'm
discussions.
legit. I got so many because like I was saying before, I read a lot of classics and stuff, and only just got back into reading fantasy. I've got a lot on my shelf, but I really haven't read like all that much. I've read the first 4 Wheel of Times, the first 3 Song of Ice and Fire, Harry Potter, and Fellowship of the Ring,
Yeah.
and a couple, maybe a Sanderson book, just a couple here and there. But I have like all of them, and I'm so excited to get to them. So with my channel and stuff, it's sort of like I'm like this fresh slate. I haven't read any of these things, so if you recommend me stuff, whatever, I'm like reading through all of these as like a first reader and getting videos out and stuff. And I've got like with this community, right? I've got a lot of people that I want to invite as like people who have read it and like it, and then like me as like a first time reader, like sort of having those a shared experience, but like with a little bit more of an expert opinion to it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So I'm
And
very
Matt,
excited.
by the way, and Alan, those are both great resources. I told the Grimoire guys this. I was like, when you do your Dead House Gates discussion, you have to invite Alan.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I was in the live chat of Chatting with Nuts last night. Alan, I don't think you were in that chat yet, but it was funny because I think Jimmy was talking with Josh, and Josh was saying, yeah, we're planning to have a guest for all of our discussions on Malazan, and Jimmy, and the whole chat exploded. Invite Alan for Dead House Gates. You have to hear Alan's thoughts on that. You're going to love
Okay.
it.
All
You're going
right.
to
All
love
right.
it.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Thank you for selling me on Malazan. I did want to bring up. This is going to be the final question because I know we both have some things we're going to do tonight and this morning.
Sure.
Final question is: have classics you've read? I'm going to curveball. Have you read any classics?
Have I read any classes? Okay,
And
here's the thing, Archer. I'm the most ill-read booktuber when it comes to classics. Like, I've read an embarrassingly low amount of classics. It's something I need to work on.
Yeah,
The
this is the
only
question
ones,
I throw just in case if you've got one that you've read that you like.
so a few that I've read Little Women when I was a
Yep.
kid. I read Frankenstein,
Yep.
Flowers for Algernon. I can't even pronounce it.
I haven't heard of it. I will admit.
I know I've read the Odyssey.
Whoa, that's big. I haven't read that. You should commend yourself for that. That's awesome. I
Oh,
haven't read
yay.
that.
Yay. Oh, fantastic.
There you go.
Let's see. I know, and the thing is, I'm always having amnesia about what I've read before. I know I've read other things and I cannot think of right now. And I went through a phase where it was when I was injured, actually, so many years ago. I just wanted to get into Shakespeare. And so what I
Yeah.
did was, at the time I was going to a university that had Shakespeare plays. They were like BBC, or I don't know, they were done in I don't know, they were like British
Yeah. BBC is the
productions.
British.
Yeah, I think they were I'm not sure exactly the production. I want to say it was BBC productions of the Shakespeare plays,
Yeah.
but they also had like the subtitle options. So I watched some Shakespeare with subtitles so that I could read Shakespeare at the same time
Yeah.
as I was watching it being acted.
Yeah.
And for
That's the way to do
me, it helped so much to see it acted at the same time as I was reading it. Because if I were reading it without seeing it acted out, I think it would have hurt my brain.
Well, it's not because it was written. It's a play. It's not a novel, so it's fully supposed to be understood, like watching it being performed. And also, from what I've heard, watching a fefew videos on Shakespeare and specifically like reading it, like Hamlet and stuff, they're not. That's not the original. So these every translation and every adaptation into modern tongue or whatever, that's not the original. So it would have been very different reading it, and so that's why it's best to watch it while you're reading it. So you probably get the good idea there. But I've
Yeah.
only read.
I haven't read the Iliad, which other people are talking about in the chat. I haven't read the Iliad, but by the way, I know that Alan has talked about this, and Stephen Erickson has lit up every time Alan's talked about this. I think Alan is the one who talked about this. Alan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Malazan takes some inspiration from the Iliad, so that might be a good one to read before Malazan too. Or I regret that I haven't read that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so. And then there was I also in high school the few classics I did read because I had to, and I wish I was required to read more. I just had a poor English education, honestly.
Yeah.
I read Beowulf. I read
Wow.
that twice now, and same with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I've now read that twice.
Yeah.
And Le Morte d'Arthur by Mallory.
Yeah.
I did have to read that, but I don't remember it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think that's all I can remember.
That's awesome. Most of those I haven't read. I haven't read Beowulf. I haven't read the Arthur one. I haven't read the Arthur one. I haven't read the Iliad. I haven't read the Odyssey. So you've got some brownie points now. There you go.
But there are so many classics I need to read. I'm so ill-read. What would you recommend for me? I do have Old Man and the Sea, which is going to be a priority this year. And I know Alan has shouted at me because he hates Hemingway. But
Hemingway is like controversial when it comes to like if he's good or not. Like if people really like him or they really don't. It depends on like if you want like a classic like pre like 1800s or something like that, like pre 1900s. I would recommend for you, and I recommend it to a lot of people. But I think as someone who likes like fantasy and like heavy, is okay with heavy themes and stuff like that, and psychological kind of torment and stuff. You've read Malazan and you've told me that it can get heavy, and even in your Prince of Nothing review and stuff, you said that it gets kind of into that. I would recommend Crime and Punishment.
Oh, I know. You know what? That's funny because actually that's one of the #1 classics I want to read.
Yeah, Crime and Punishment is like life-changing. It is so good. It's like because the general story is he thinks the only way he can become a great man is to murder someone. So he murders his landlady, and then basically up until that point he thinks like, oh, this is going to be the best. I'm going to be like a superhuman now. And then as soon as he does it, because he does it really early on in the book, and so the majority, all the rest of it is this like psychological like battle with himself of like what he's done. That's all of it, and it's just like his like slow downfall because he's realized like, oh, I've done something. Dostoevsky's like he's the best author for like the human condition and like what certain events and trauma will do to like human psychology. So Dostoevsky is really good for that. And the way that Russian lit is translated as well is unbeatable. It's like perfect.
So that's it's interesting because I started asking my family last year, my family members, because they're all very well read. I honestly come from a family of people who are way more well read than I am, which is kind of funny.
That's me as well. That's me. I'm trying to crawl up to where my grandma and my mom are. I'm trying to like get up there. But
exactly. My mom's favorite book of all time is Crime and Punishment. I just found out about that last year.
I think I saw you speak about that on a video. I think you did mention that at one point, and I was like, "Oh, okay, Joanna's mom's kind of awesome. That's cool."
I know. She is awesome.
That's two people recommending it to you. So
I need to get to that. I love the way you sold that too. I am so sold. I need to get to that. And then the other one, that I really want to read because it's my dad's favorite is Don Quixote. Have you read that?
Don Quixote, I'm reading in the summer. So for you, I guess it would be the winter. I'm reading it at the end of this year for the first time. Yes, I've
Okay.
actually got a viewer sending me a copy from Canada, and I was like, wow. And I was like, why are you doing that? And they were like, oh, it just felt like Christmas spirit. And I was like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
yeah. So it's their favorite book as well. So I'm doing because I'm doing like I'm trying to do three big classic read-alongs like this year, and I'm gonna start doing one at the start of the year, middle, and end. So the one in March I'm doing is War and Peace by Tolstoy, which is like a murder weapon. And then in the middle of the year, I'm doing the Odyssey. So I am doing that in the middle of the year. And then the end of the year is going to be Don Quixote. So that will be,
Oh, that's perfect.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to read the Odyssey because I've read Ulysses recently, and Ulysses is like loosely
Mm.
based off the Odyssey,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's why I kind of wanted to like read the Odyssey because I've read Ulysses now, and it's like, oh, before I ever reread Ulysses, I want to have understood some of the references in the Odyssey, and that's why this book is called the book about everything, because in Ulysses it's like history, archaeology, economics, race, like there's everything in it.
Is that
And
Joyce, James Joyce, or?
Joyce, I don't know. I'm more, when we're talking about Malazan, there's like a part of me that's like terrified because of how hyped up it is, but then there's like another side of me where it's like I think I'm gonna be okay because Ulysses is like one of the hardest books to read
Yeah.
ever. And I think it's like the third, and then the first is another one of his books. So
Yeah.
he's an interesting man. But Ulysses, I think it is a book everyone needs to read. But
Okay.
it's
Huh.
I don't know. It's very hard to it's kind of hard
Alan's
to
comment.
sell with how friends don't let friends. Okay, yeah. If you wanna if we're friends, yeah, I won't do that to you. But friends don't. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So publication order always from Matt.
Yeah.
So I will read the Iliad first. I'll probably read the Iliad because they're both not too big. I might read the Iliad just before I do Odyssey.
Oh, by the way, Matt is such a great
No,
resource on
no, everyone needs to read it. I love Ulysses. It is one of my favorite books ever since reading it. So Alan, you can think I'm
Wow.
crazy.
Okay,
It's
you like the complex stuff. You're not. I think you're gonna love Malazan
okay.
because I think you're gonna love it. I predict that, and I don't recommend it lightly. I really don't. The only other thing I would
No,
you're just destroying us.
no, this kills me. Okay, yes. Okay. If you can see, Alan, I have an Irish lit shelf here with 2 copies of Ulysses
Oh
and
wow.
like multiple like scholarly books on it. I love Ulysses, Alan. So please don't break his hand, please. If you ever get the ability to teleport, I wish James Jones. Oh well, actually, Virginia Woolf was famous for hating Ulysses as well. Apparently, she DNF'd
Oh,
it. Yeah, she actually said multiple times she also DNF'd Ulysses.
I always
Um,
get Virginia Woolf. I always get her confused with another female author. But which one wrote Mrs. Dalloway? Because that's another
that's
one that was,
that's Wolf.
yeah, that's one that was recommended to me by
Yeah,
a friend not too long ago.
yeah. I haven't read any of hers either, to be honest. But yeah, Wolf is girl boss. I've heard Wolf is girl boss. But all right.
Woof.
So
Are they being silly? Is that how you spell it? Woof.
yeah, no, it is. That's how you spell it.
Are
Yeah,
they?
it's Wolf. Wolf. Yeah,
Woof.
I'm not
Okay,
sure
I
if
guess I've been saying it wrong. Woof.
Wolf.
Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, okay. All right, both of you Ulysses haters, you can continue this elsewhere, perhaps. I'm feeling I'm enraged right now.
I need to, yeah, there are
I
so
feel like
many
that's what
classics
Alan.
I need to read, like I said, but I'm super curious to hear your Malazan journey. And
Yeah,
Matt, by the way, also has some great Malazan
yeah,
content
yeah,
on
yeah.
his channel. Of
He just
course,
said
I'm
he's
sure he's
releasing
there.
another one this week, so we'll keep an eye on that.
He's doing his
Right.
reread right now, which
Yeah.
I understand. Everybody says that reading Malazan is one thing and rereading it is like a whole other level of amazingness,
Okay. All right.
which I can't even imagine because it was so good the first time.
Not sure if or when I'll ever reread it, but I will be definitely reading it. Joanna, thank you so much for coming on my channel. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I hope we can do this again. Officially, this week, you have sold me on 2 series. Your Prince of Nothing review, I added it to my TBR straight away, and now Malazan. So that is all we probably, I'm not speaking for you, but I assume so. That's kind of all we want to do on BookTube. I mean, for me as well, is make other people read more books that we enjoy. So you have successfully done that twice this week with me. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Archer. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you. I don't think there's ever been a BookTube live stream in existence like this in which people don't leave adding like 5 more books to their TBR.
Yeah, it always happens. And it's like my TBR is on 610 and now it's on 600 and how many Malazan books? 623 or whatever if you've included the other. There's a lot to it. But yes, you've made my TBR 623, so thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you for the chat, guys. This will be on live replay, so if you guys watch this afterwards, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.